Hello everyone, Tim McKinney with Evercoat. I'm here with Bryan Fuller. Bryan and I met at the SEMA show a couple years ago, and it was kind of interesting the way we met because we were talking about proper welds and proper finishing of the metal before you put your metalwork on. And so it kind of brought us to the point where I'm down here working with Bryan on a couple other projects, and we were talking about this, and he thought, well, we can just kind of walk through the process here real quick. So Bryan was wanting to talk a little bit about doing some welds and proper welds.
Yeah, let's get it going. So first one we're going to do is TIG welding. So what I've done is I've simulated kind of a typical 18 gauge steel, panel. I popped a hole. So okay, we're going to do a patch panel on a, mirror.
Take out a door handle.
Weld up a trim hole, like very typical, especially old car stuff. So my panel from patching is going to have a little bit of a, what's your ears? A little bit of a nugget in there. And let's see if it fits back in, which is just so close. All right, let me just hit it on the bandsaw real quick. We'll be right back. If you can get real close. Okay. Now, if this was thicker metal, then you might bevel it. And hey, Ezra, I'm gonna need pseudo quiet. Not terrible, like you can work if it's not hammering and loud. But now, if this was thicker, you would want to bevel it. But for sheet metal, typically, you're not gonna have to. Oh, that is so close.
It is.
What do you think? You want to go for it?
Let's go for it.
Man,
I got faith in you.
I don't know. I feel like maybe, I don't want to get caught doing something dumb. There. God, it's so close. All right. Let's just hit it with a little more. Just to make sure. No need to push it. That's pretty darn close. Gosh. I know it'll go. I hate to be wrong. I don't want to be wrong. Man. Try that C-clamp over there. Let's see if it'll... All right, so let's try it. What I'm gonna do, Tim, if you'll hold this. Okay. Hold that. Now, so the idea is that you're gonna be using the shape of the bottom and you got a flat top. So I'm gonna hold with pressure. Can you hold more pressure? You really want to hold pressure on that bottom. That's really typically where people go wrong. And I feel pretty good about that. Yeah, that's good enough. So, now this is obviously making for a real easy fit. When you're doing one in the real life, a lot of times you're not going to have that nice of a fit. Put these in, and then these are actually UV. Oh. So people think that you put them on so you don't go, which is partially true. But they're actually UV protected.
This is pretty UV, so I won't go with that.
You're only here for a second. You'll be fine. But, all right, we got our TIG in. We're at 76 amps. Now, for those of you who haven't TIG, TIG is the way to go. I'm just going to talk all day. So, I'm going to get in here, make a little tack. Oh, that's so nice. I just love the TIG. Make a little TIG tack. Now, We're gonna pull this away. Now, for sheet metal, no question, almost always the TIG is the way to go. You've got a heat source, it's putting amperage down into the panel, and then you add rod. And we're gonna do another video with MIG, which is easier to weld, but you get a lot more fill. And so your finishing becomes a lot harder. And the cleaning isn't even close. Put a good hand on that. Down here, of course. Can you hold it?
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm gonna be pushing up. I'm gonna need some weight. Don't burn yourself. I'm hammering on the tack because it's shrinking. So every little bit where you weld, there's gonna be a shrink. Okay, so I'm bringing that up. And then I'm gonna kind of just put these. Okay. It's going to be shrinking while I do it, and I'm going to hammer it back up. So at the end of the day, and again, really trying to get it flat. Like, and what Tim was talking about, like, if you go and just put a panel underneath this thing, bond it, glue it, adhesive it, the big thing that you don't want is you don't want to step in the metal, because over time, shrink, stretch, heat, cold, that step is what's going to come back and haunt you.
Yes.
That's what's going to make that ring.
Yeah. And I've seen where people have welded in another patch, maybe not nearly as close to this, and they've even had issues because they didn't get it as good of a weld, and they've also used a different gauge of metal. And those two different gauges of metal will expand and contract at different rates. The panel bonding, I've seen this occur in several different applications where the panel bond started to heat and move and shrink, and everything over top of it starts to heat and move and shrink. It's not a solid foundation. That's why I wanted to talk about this.
Now, so this is looking good. I can tell, but the main thing you want to be checking is, you see that we're not negative, right? See how that's looking good? Because that's where you're going to be filling. And for me, you're trying to get it within a 1/16 of an inch. So let's go ahead and weld this thing up. And I'm going to do an area first. And we're going to do, this is called hammer welding. So we're going to do an area. I'm going to get Tim to hold it again. Try not to burn himself. Hold it. Okay. And we're going to hammer on that thing while it's hot. And what that's doing is we're pre-stretching this thing, 1. 2, we're going to be evening out where the highs and lows of the weld are, so that we're going to get real nice smooth panels. So we'll do that. I do that a lot. But what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and blast through this thing. I'm going to switch to the other side just to kind of keep the heat moving. But you know, the whole thing is that, you know, within a sheet metal panel, the amount of material that you have is what determines your shape. You know, if you do a big crown panel or a panel that's stamped, it's got a lot of shape in it, right? That's a lot of stretch. Yeah. So the amount of material within that panel, that's what determines the actual shape, unless you just bend it in a turn. So keeping control over that amount of material becomes ultra critical, because that's what gives you your shape. And it's super simple concept, but you know, there's like 30-year metalworkers out there that just don't have a clue. So again, we're gonna fully weld this thing up, which is gonna probably distort it pretty good. And again, if I was doing this in real life, I'd probably just keep hammer welding it about 1 inch or 2 at a time, keep it under control. But I want you to at least see it kind of go south.
And that's the thing about stitch welding. When I get questions come up about MIG welding, I say, you know, you want to do a stitch. You want to let one area, as it starts to create that much heat, this isn't putting nearly much heat into it as what a MIG would.
Actually, that's the opposite.
It's the opposite?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
we just
see?
fully welded that thing.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
hot as shite right now.
Shite.
Now, if you tacked it, it would be.
But by controlling that amount of heat that's going into it,
See that?
you're going to control the warp. If you just do a tack weld and there's gaps between it, what happens is that allows areas for moisture to start into it. It starts to rust from the backside, and you don't see it until it's too late.
Okay. Hold her again.
Okay.
Now, again, if you're at home, dollying up. Hammering on dolly. And we would continue to do that. And more than likely, it would come back. Luckily, we're a professional shop. We have a thing called a planching hammer, and an English wheel, and a power hammer, which make this go a lot faster. So we're gonna use that. We'll need the air. Get it over here.
Going.
This tool's so badass.
If you're not wearing ear protection, now's a good time.
So we're going to match the size of the bottom, or the shape of the bottom. And we're going to have a flat top, same as we did with our hammer and dolly. Sick. We'll lock the wheels. Turn the pressure up a little bit. A lot of times we're doing aluminum, which doesn't take as much pressure. Now I've even overdone a little bit just because I have done samples enough to know. But see, that's all up now.
Looks good. You make it look easy.
It is easy.
I wish I had your skills on
Again, if you just follow the rules.
this. Right, right.
I'm a rule follower.
And know how to tick.
I'm a rule follower. That's so funny. Okay, now look how beautiful that is.
That looks good.
Dude, that's no grinding. We haven't touched it. Make sure you got good penetration. That's come through really nice. All right, now, it's so beautiful. Like, I got this hard wheel out, but to knock it down, when we do the MIG trick, MIG welding, and we'll use this. But man, it's so easy. So, we're almost done. Another tip, get the biggest grinder on there you can. Why use a little bitty grinder if you're doing a pretty good sized panel?
True. Very true.
You want to put a hand on it? Now I'm going to hold it nice and flat so I'm not all ground like this. Get some close-ups. YouTube guys were watching this because we just put that butt end to end and that was real time. 10 seconds?
Yeah.
15 seconds. And then the back, if I was going into a metal situation, I would just touch it off. And that would be it.
Yeah.
That would be done.
But you can't even tell that there was a hole there.
That's right. That's the point.
That's the point. That's the
That
point.
wasn't that hard, right?
No, no.
All right, well, that was it. That's all I got.
Thanks for showing
Anything
us.
else?
That's it, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Learn to TIG. Do a bunch of sheet metal, learn to TIG. Now,
I
we
gotta
are
learn
going to
to
do a
TIG.
MIG version right now. We'll put that up too. But man, if you're doing sheet metal, TIG's the bomb.
I've noticed that. That's the
Wow.
way I'm going to go.
That was